Hello, fellow Thunder Wizards. So today we are going to talk about the five elements again. I will be going over things we've already talked about, but it's been a while since I've talked about it. And this came about because I was talking with one of my apprentices, and we started talking about the elements. And I heard myself talking about some things that I thought, that would be interesting to talk about with all of my apprentices. And all of you on Patreon as well. So, if you need to, please go back and watch some of the five elements again so that you can get an understanding. This is important to understand for Thunder Wizardry because, as you know, I do not teach any kind of fixed state of enlightenment. There's never a time in my experience, in my opinion, and certainly in what I teach, there's never a point where you reach the highest level of spirituality and you've reached this sort of fixed state of pure enlightenment with the gods and the universe, and we just don't get that. And I think that's important because we've talked about it. I think that the belief in that, whether it exists or not, to me is not as important as the effect of it. The bottom line of this is, spirituality for me has to have a practical effect. I'm not in it for, trying to divert myself from my feelings. I'm not trying to be righteous. I could care less about that. I'm not, trying to meet any kind of religious standards. For me, spirituality has one function, and that is to make my life better so that I am happier and healthier. If it doesn't do that, I'm not interested. So when it comes to things like enlightenment, like I said, whether or not it exists, that's not a belief system that works for me. I've seen people who chase after enlightenment, and most of the time they're unhappy on some level and they're wanting to escape. So I would much rather find ways to enjoy life here and now. The five elements is a really wonderful tool. Again, it's not an idea. This is something that has practical reality. If you work with five elements in a tradition that actually knows what they're doing, you're going to feel the power of them. And the Taoist tradition, in my experience, has mastered the five elements. It's the same five elements that's used in Vedic Ayurveda, as well as in the same five elements that are thrown around in Western understanding. And the five elements really have to do with a dynamic balance. So we have the descent of the five elements, which tells us how energy creates. And I've talked about it before, but I think I have it here as well. And this is by the way, I'm going to be going back and forth between Taoist and Western. Ether is wood and air is metal, so they're interchangeable. So this is how the elements are used in terms of creation. When pure life force energy starts to create, it distinguishes itself into five different methods of working. And as it comes down into reality, we start with the least dense, which has all of the elements in it, and that is ether. And ether descends and becomes air. So air is a more dense form of the ether element. And then air becomes fire, which is a more dense element of air. And then you have water, which is more dense than fire. And then you have earth, which is the most dense. So if we look at it in terms of matter, earth is actual matter, and ether is life force energy as it's making there. It has all kinds of other connections, which we're going to get into, but first just take a look at this and memorize this, because this is how energy manifests and creates in terms of, I shouldn't say create, this is how life force energy descends into full matter. But it also shows the five functions of the elements. So the elements have five functions as well. And so we have ether, which expands. We have air, which contracts. We have fire, which rises. We have water, which descends. And we have earth, which congeals or centers. So, there's the five, actual elements, and then there's the five functions that all matter functions with, including emotions. Emotions is just another form of energy, and we're going to be talking about that. So, have that understanding, and then as we start getting deeper and talking about them, these other things are going to make sense. So, take a look at this. I believe this is it. Okay, and then I'd like for you to take a look at this next one, because and so please, if you don't have this memorized already, please take notes on what I'm about to say. I don't have a little graph for it, so you're just going to have to listen to what I say and take notes. So the five elements, there are multiple ways that the five elements can progress, and if you really want to understand that, then you can look into traditional Chinese medicine, which will go into all of those and how they affect health. I have somewhat of a different, more pragmatic approach in terms of personal interaction, and I only focus on two of them. So the first one is one you've already seen, which is how energy descends, and it's energy descending into the body as well as energy manifesting into physical reality. But this is also used on an external level for spirit fighting. You use the elements that way. You can use it in martial arts this way as well. How somebody comes at you will have a connection to a certain element, and I'm not here to teach that, but you can use to counter somebody's martial approach. You can use different elements to counter that, which have different moves in it. And it's also used dealing with people in an external level emotionally. We've probably talked about that. So you've already seen that. That is it's called the insulting, which doesn't really make sense. It's not like the elements are insulting each other. I mean, I use it in terms of cleansing. And it's ether, air, fire, water, earth, which you've already seen. Now, we can really see this when we replace the Western element names for the Chinese, which is ether becomes wood and air becomes metal. And so here we see that really well, because trees expand as they grow, so that's the wood element, and metal contracts, because in order to get metal, you have to take certain minerals, and under lots of pressure, they become metals. I hope that's right. I may have my science wrong there, but metal is a very condensed. It's a very condensed form of matter. So we have contraction there. So we have expansion, contraction. We have rising, falling, and centering. So we're going to talk about how that relates to the emotions. But yeah, wood and metal, you can see that in there. Anyway, I know I'm kind of getting confusing, but just bear with me here. I promise it'll make sense. Okay, so the next one is the constructive or the healing progression. And what I'd like for you to do here is take a look at this this picture I'm going to show you, and it'll show the different ways that the elements can progress. If you follow the elements in a clockwise fashion, you'll see the what I call the healing progression, which is ether, fire, earth, air, and water. Okay, that's if you go in that progression, that will build energy, and that's used a lot for healing and for meditation and for qigong. And then if you follow the arrows, you can follow from wood to metal to fire to water to earth, and you can see how they connect that way. So take a look at this for a little bit. If you need to take like a screenshot of it or something to hold on to it, you can. But first look in a clockwise fashion, and then follow wood, metal, fire, water, earth, and you'll see the connection there. Okay, so I'm going to be telling you how to use this. Of course, this is all practical. Without, if it's just talk, it doesn't mean anything. So we need to get it into practical reality. So on a practical reality, if I were teaching martial arts, I could show you how to use different things in different ways. But we're not doing that. But it's just as pertinent and effective when you deal with other people. It's the same mindset. So when you're dealing with people, how to function at work, how to function in relationships, how to function in life. This is really about how to resolve conflicts and get through conflicts. So you consider yourself if there is such a state of just being, at peace or just sort of centered, it starts off at the element of ether, or the element of wood. And so that's, if you want to be in a friendly state, work with ether, and you can just do that with life force energy. And for there, let's say you're just walking around being yourself. And then what happens is if somebody comes at you with metal, which would be a criticism, because what metal does, metal separates. So that's what the intellect does, by the way. So people who are usually really good at arguing with people who are usually really good at criticizing people have a strong metal element. That's me. I'm the worst person. Trust me, you don't want to get in an argument with me. I'll slice you to pieces. But there's a way to overcome that. So let's say you're just being yourself and somebody comes along and throws at you some kind of either passive-aggressive or outright criticism. Now, what a lot of people do is they get angry. And so that is a way, getting angry and not addressing the fact that somebody just criticized you. You're working into their hands. So what a lot of people do is they get angry and then they try and use metal back at them. So using metal, when somebody's thrown metal at you, it's just two swords clashing. It makes a lot of noise and doesn't really accomplish a lot. But usually people are angry when they do it, and so they end up working against themselves. So the thing to do is to address with just fire. So what happens is wood comes up and then it gets chopped down by metal. So you're just being yourself. Somebody criticizes you. That's the metal chopping at you. So it feels like you're getting chopped down to size, and so that hurts. So instead of turning around and trying to use metal on that person, the thing to do is to let the fire come out. Now, one thing, when I say the fire has to do with anger. I'm not saying blow your top and get upset, but to say, wow, that I don't like it when you talk to me like that. Address when somebody is criticizing you and address what they're doing. Say, why are you attacking me? That really angers me, and I was in a good mood. I'm just giving you my words. Use your own words. So that's the theory. The theory is that when somebody comes at you with metal, you come at them with fire. And then let's say you're on the other side of that. So you're on the other side of that. Somebody comes at you with fire. Again, what most people do is they use fire. They get mad and they throw fire at the other person. So then you got two people throwing fireballs at each other. And that doesn't accomplish a whole heck of a lot. So you want to achieve some dynamic balance. So what puts out fire is water, and water is sadness. So if somebody comes at you with fire and yells at you, then you say, wow, the tears coming out of your eyes, that will usually, especially with somebody like me, if I'm talking to somebody and I've made them cry, it'll just stop me in my tracks. You can't stay angry when you see that you've hurt somebody. So it's important to let them know that. Now, you don't have to necessarily start crying, but instead of getting angry and throwing a fireball back at them, which is just you're going to blow up the whole house, you say, that really hurts my feelings. You really hurt me. Let them know, that makes me sad, that hurts me. Whatever it is, being honest and direct with your emotions. And the reason for that is because anger is usually a mask for hurt. It's a mask for sadness. And so it's important to, if you really want to progress in your own personal spiritual path, and you want to get the most out of life, remember this is all about being happy and healthy, then getting honest with your feelings and being honest with others and letting them know how their behavior is affecting you is going to be very helpful. So a lot of people aren't going to be prepared for that. If they come at you with fire, instead of using fire against them, you use the water. This could also be compassion as well. Another, this has happened to me before too, where I've been angry, and maybe I'm not, running around trying to be angry, but it's clear that I am. And I'll be talking, and people say, "Wow, you seem really angry. What's happened? I care about you. Is everything okay?" That's the water too, the water putting that on. Now that is different from kissing ass. So let me just be clear. I'm not talking about being a people pleaser. People pleasers, when they do it, it's a survival technique. And there's a place for that, but, when we're talking about being mature adults and we're talking about coming from your own integrity, don't be using the water in an attempt to kiss people's rear end. But when you're coming from a place of strength, you can say, not reacting to somebody's anger with anger, and to acknowledge, wow, you must be really upset. What's happened to you? There must be a lot going on with you. Again, I'm using my own words. You use yours. But that's what you do. When somebody comes at you with anger, you come at them with the water element, with either you reveal to them that you're sad or come at them with some compassion, some healing compassion. And then we have earth. So let's say somebody is inconsolable and they're weeping and they're crying, and sometimes that is a weapon as well. Using your sadness, and this can happen lots of times when somebody won't forgive somebody. They just can't let go of something, and you really hurt me, and you did this, and you hurt me, and you're crying and all that. But it's really a weapon. Then you have to bring some reality to it and say, hey, come on, let's get real about this. How many times do I need to apologize to you? Maybe apology, okay, I apologize. Maybe you do need to apologize. I definitely am one of those people, I try to do that. When somebody brings to my attention that I've been harmful to them, even if even if I'm not, quote, at fault, this is important. I ran into this with my ex-wife, and I would try and tell her how her behavior affected me. And then she literally couldn't handle that. She was, I think she was borderline personality. She could not handle being shown that she had been at fault. She just couldn't take it. So for her, apologizing meant that she was not just apologizing or trying to meet somebody in their pain. To her, it meant that she was this worthless person that deserved to be completely destroyed, and so she just couldn't apologize. It was really traumatic for her. But apologies can be earth as well. And if I know that I've hurt somebody, I like to believe that I will be able to get to the point to say, listen, I apologize that I did that, or I apologize that I made you feel that way. I did this, 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 and this, and you didn't deserve that. Please accept my apology. I can do that without feeling like I'm the worst person in the world. I can also do that knowing sometimes that it's not my fault. Sometimes, people just have their soft spots, and just being yourself, you can accidentally step on a sore spot. And you haven't necessarily, won't have the same effect on somebody else, but might really hurt somebody's feelings. In which case you can say, I apologize that I did that. You didn't deserve that, or I'm sorry if I gave you the impression I wanted to do this. It wasn't where I'm coming from, but I can totally understand. Understanding is earth. Comprehension is earth. I can totally understand where you're coming from and why you would feel that way. And I will endeavor in the future to work hard not to do that. Or you can say, but let me explain to you where I was coming from. And if you do that not with trying to defend yourself, because that's not helpful. In fact, a lot of times if I'm in conversation with people, I'll stop and I say, listen, I don't need you to defend yourself right now. That's not helpful. we're trying to have a conversation here, and I'm not accusing you. I don't need you to defend yourself. So you don't need to defend yourself, but sometimes it is helpful to let people know where you are coming from because they don't know. So you're giving them valuable information. So sometimes you can actually do something with the intent of helping them, and because of their, whatever, their failings or their trauma in their past, you can accidentally, hit a sore spot. And then you have to say, listen, I'm sorry that you took it that way. That's not at all where I was coming from. Let me explain to you where I was coming from, because I was actually coming from a healing place. And that is earth as well, because earth brings comprehension. And we'll talk about what that is. Sometimes earth is just like, hey, knock it off. I'm not going to play this game with you. That is earth as well, where you bring, stark reality, like a boulder coming down, bringing it, boom, back down to earth. This is obviously something that you don't do now. This was in the 50s, and this is absolutely, totally wrong. But remember, like in the 50s and 60s, when the woman is irrational and she's crying or whatever, and the man would slap her. Come out of it, right? Obviously, that is wrong. There's no justification for slapping somebody trying to bring them to reality. But sometimes there can be a word or a phrase. Sometimes I've done this, a couple times. Hey, knock it off. That is not where I'm coming from. This is not a rational discussion. Now, you've got to pick that right, because obviously if you make a habit of telling people to knock it off every time they have a feeling, then that's not going to do the job. But the same kind of thing. You say, hang on a second. That's not at all where I'm coming from, and you know it. Come on. Let's come back to what we're talking about here. So centering, bringing things back. So you can also be very loving. You get it. There's different ways of doing it. It kind of sounds, if I listen to myself, it kind of sounds like I'm kind of a difficult person to deal with. But I hope that's not the case. In any case, sometimes that can be the earth as well. So let's go over it again. Somebody comes at you with, let's see what else. And the other thing is, let's say if somebody is too grounded. Say it's just they're not going anywhere, because earth, when it's not functioning, it's just stuck. It doesn't move. So when that happens, then you need wood, which is encouragement. Hey, you are really good at this. Hey, come on, let's go. I am really excited about that. I really like you. Wood is also kindness. It's really reaching out. Wood, when you reach your hand out to somebody, hi, my name is Mike, and you shake their hand, that is wood. So wood gets things moving. You're sitting next to somebody and they're not talking, they're not doing anything, or, you're sitting within yourself and you're feeling, self-conscious, and you're not saying anything. Wood says, hey, what is your name? Hey, how do you like the rain? It's, the first, on dating sites, the first message is wood. Wood breaks up the earth. It comes up through the earth, right? Breaks up through the earth. It breaks it up. It breaks up the stagnation. So now you can see how all this moves together. So again, let's look at the 5 elements, and again, look at it going in a clockwise fashion. Oh, no, actually, sorry, not in a clockwise fashion. I take that back. Look at it go from wood to metal, fire, water, and earth, and now imagine emotions attached to that. Wood would be things like friendliness, congeniality. Metal is criticism. Metal can also be, when things are too, like expansion. Wood expands, right? When things are expanding, and let's say somebody's just all over the place and they're not really making any sense, and they're not grounded, they're not directed. So you have to direct them. Hey, metal says, hey, turn left. Pay attention. You got to turn left here, or you got to turn right. It has to be specific. And then you have the fire, which is anger, or letting people know, hey, that hurts. That hurt me. Ow. That's fire as well. Water, that hurts my feelings. You've made me sad. Or why are you so angry? Wow, can I get you a glass of water? Can I make you feel better? and earth is I understand, I comprehend, or hey, come on, knock it off. Let's take a look at this realistically. And then if you have just nothing moving, then wood comes up and breaks through the stagnation of earth. So look at that again from wood, metal, fire, water, earth. Okay, so you see that? So that's how that works in terms of dealing with people. And then again, that's a general, I'm using my terms and, but you can meditate on this concept and meditate on how to interact. You're going to have a different personality than me. I got a very fiery personality. I'm very direct, so I tend to be that way. But you can still embody all of these 5 elements in your emotional interactions using your own demeanor, your own personality. You don't have to use mine. So let's talk about the next one that I use, which I call the constructive or the healing. And that is going to be going in a clockwise fashion this time. And this is how you generate energy. The first way that I just walked through is a way of purifying. So that's usually when there's conflict, we need to sometimes purify the air, and so that's how the elements interact. When people are with their imperfections come together, and it can cause tension. This is how, in that form of quote warfare, the elements can bring a sense of balance. So now we're going to look at how the elements can actually create energy, and this is used a lot in meditation and in Qigong. So this is looking at the same graph, go in a clockwise fashion. Okay, so if I'm right, it should go wood, fire, earth, metal, water. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so the way that you can look at that is that that wood comes up out of the ground, and then as the year goes on and the wood dries out, or there's too much, there's too much expansion, then we deal with that with the forest fire. So in the forest, you get a lot of undergrowth and a lot of bushes, and the grass dries out and all that. So then we have fire. So fire comes through and burns all of the excess, which is actually good because it clears away the forest floor so that the sunlight can get to it. And then it goes into the earth. So you get all the minerals and everything that comes from the fire burning through all of the brush and the trees and all of that. And then that ash with all of the minerals in there goes into the earth. So you have wood, fire, earth, and then it turns into metal, meaning that those minerals get pressed down and goes deep into the earth and gets pressed down. And then you go deeper, and gravity, you'll find water down there. You keep going down, and that's where the well is. So, I mean, when you dig, you start digging deep enough, you eventually hit water, because water sinks, right? So the water and the minerals and the earth and the soil, they all come together, and then what happens again? The wood comes up out of the earth. So this is the creation of life. And for this, the way I like to look at it is in meditation. So there is a way to meditate, and I've probably shared with you the 5-element sounds. So please go back and look at those, and you can use the 5-element sounds this way. But if we're looking at these two progressions, one can be seen as external, and the other one can be seen as internal. And the internal one in meditation, the way that you can do that is by talking to the organs in your body. So one of the things that Taoists do is they do what's called the inner smile. You can look it up. It's a very famous and a really wonderful meditation. But one of the things they do in the inner smile is they talk to the organs, or they send the organs love. You smile to your organs. And so you can do it in this manner. First, you start with smiling to the liver, because you can see here again, look at the five organs connected to each one of the elements. So you can start that with checking with yourself and talking to your liver, or just smiling down to your liver. And what you want to look for is any resentment. You know, I actually had a dream last night, and I woke up this morning feeling angry and upset, and I listened to myself. And you know, I do this a lot when I'm in between sleeping and waking up. If you're able to do this, this is helpful too. I analyze my dreams before I'm thoroughly awake, because I find at that state I can really connect to my unconscious, and my conscious and my unconscious can communicate. And I'm able to ask, you know, who was that in that dream? What did that represent? And I had this dream where I got angry at this person, and I started, you know, yelling at them and physically intimidating them and all that. And so I woke up really angry, and I didn't recognize who it was, and I asked myself, who was that? And then I realized who that was. There's an actual person in my life that I haven't talked to in years. But I became aware that I have a resentment towards this guy. And so I had to work with that. And there's a whole way that I do that, you know, working with resentments. So the first thing you want to do when you're working with the wood is to ask your liver, you know, are you resentful? Do you have any resentments? So the first stage is just getting honest with it. If you have resentments, what's the difference between anger and resentment? Anger is a flash. Anger is you're driving down the freeway, somebody cuts you off, and you, hey, motherfucker, get that, and you're, and then after, you know, I don't recommend that, by the way. I don't recommend that because of road rage. It's just a bad idea, but you get the idea. I've been one of those guys that people have done that to. I've done things like followed them back to their house. And yeah, they're not so angry then. Anyway, I don't recommend that. It's a bad idea. I'm laughing at myself because I used to be a very angry guy a long time ago. Anyway, so by the way, I never did anything. I never harmed anybody or caused any damage to anybody or property. So just letting you know. Anyway, so you want to look at that. You want to look at your resentments. And the first thing is you want to be honest that you have resentments. Anger, again, is a flash, and it's there to protect you. And ideally, what happens is you get angry, and once the threat passes, then the anger diminishes. But if you're holding on to something and you're angry about something all the time, you know, the damn government, or the damn this, or my mom did that, or my dad did that, or my ex did this to me, those are resentments, and those will cause you damage. They will cause you physical damage. It's stored in the liver. This is why alcoholics, one of the reasons alcoholics have liver problems is because not only is the alcohol preventing the liver from doing its work, but it's also they drink because they have these resentments that they're just angry all the time at something that happened in the past, and they're trying to self-medicate through alcohol. And alcohol, you know, actually it preserves resentments, in case you didn't know that. Alcohol is used to preserve dead things, and it kills living things. You use it to sanitize, and you use it to have, you know, if you want to hold a specimen or a dead frog or something, you put it in alcohol. That's what it does to resentments. So if you're one of those people that drinks when you're angry, all that's happening is that you are, like alcohol, preserving something that's trying to kill you. Resentments are trying to kill you. That resentment will eat you up. So you want to listen and ask yourself, you know, do I have any resentments? And the positive side of wood is understanding. It's like I said, it's really, hi, my name is Mike, how are you? So openness, fairness, kindness, this is wood. So, you know, you have to try and understand. But the first thing you need to do is acknowledge that you have a resentment, okay? So you talk to your liver and send it positive vibes, and if any resentments come up, you acknowledge that you have them and let yourself feel them. So you move from there to the heart. Now the heart is going to be, if on the negative side, there's going to be impatience. Get the hell out of my way. That fire coming out. So you want to take a look and see if you have any impatience. Obviously, the positive side of the heart is going to be love, unconditional love. But if you've ever noticed, like cult members, people that are like that are supposedly throwing all this love at you, they're some of the most impatient people that you've ever run into. If you don't do what they want when they want, they get very impatient. They don't like that. So that's the childish side of that is impatience. So you want to say hello to your heart. If any impatience comes out, you want to help purify that, or you can simply help that by going into unconditional love, because you can't get impatient if you don't have any conditions. That kind of anger, that flash of anger, won't come up if you don't have expectations. If you have expectations on how somebody's supposed to be or what they're supposed to give you, people pleasers do this all the time. They pretend, I'm here to give to you, and how can I help you, and let me do this for you, and let me rub your back, and let me make you some dinner. And what's really going on is they want something from you, and they're trying to control you. When you don't give them what they want, they get angry. So that's the heart center. So looking at that kind of impatience, that kind of anger, and also looking at unconditional love, true unconditional love, will come from the heart. So first, as I said, you talk to the liver, and then you talk to the heart. So where we're at, wood, fire, earth. So then you talk to the spleen and the stomach. And the stomach, what does the stomach do? It digests. So this has to do with your ability to comprehend. Comprehend meaning being able to digest your life. So if you have bad digestion, like if you're constipated all the time, it means that you're not comprehending, you're not digesting life. I've shared about this, but this is stomach cancer. Stomach cancer is somebody who's confused. So it's confusion, the inability. You're confused. They can't. It's not the kind of confusion like which direction should I go. It's the kind of confusion of they're unable to comprehend how life works. How is it that life can be like that? How can there be a loving God and there's all this suffering in the world, and they can't comprehend it, they can't digest it? So you want to acknowledge that bewilderment, confusion, that kind of being stuck, unable to move because you're bewildered by life. So focusing on the spleen and the stomach, and smiling down to that, talking to that, letting any of those feelings come up, and learning how to understand that. So the next one is what helps all that. So when you're in that state of bewilderment, that comes also from a lack of trust. Because if you're not trusting the universe, then you're trying to figure out, like I said, well, how can there be a God if there's all this pain and misery in the world? Then you need to trust. So we move to the kidneys. Now the kidneys is about trust, because that's what the water does. The water flows. Trust is a flow. So you'll notice that people who have financial fears, they almost always have lower back pain. I know, because I've been there many times. And by the way, I'm not immune to any of this stuff. I'm doing pretty good today, but I still have my body will still give me problems and give me pain, and that means that I'm still, I'm human, and I'm still trying to struggle with, how to balance myself with life, and trust is one of them. Sometimes my lower back does give me a hard time, and it's usually when I'm worrying about future money things. It's when you're worried about, am I going to have the money in the future? And what's really behind that is a feeling that the universe isn't providing for you. Because what does the water do? The water nurtures. It brings nutrients and resources to you. So when you feel like the universe is not providing for you, it's as though the stream has dried up and it's not bringing you the water to nourish you. And that's when you have pain in your lower back. Oh, the kidneys. It's the kidneys. And so acknowledging any lack of trust, any fear of not being taken care of, you're worried about the future, you feel as though you deserve more, you're not getting enough from your family, people aren't nourishing you. All of those feelings come from a lack of trust. Because if you trust the universe, then the universe is now open to provide for you. And so, when I've been in those situations and I have what looks like, problems in the future, that, when I've gone through that in the past and I was afraid that I wasn't going to get enough money, which by the way, I always did, then I would just trust. I would look at, have I done what I need to do? Yep, I've done everything I can do today. And then I just trust. Or taking that risk and trusting. That's another tough one. Inaction. Being stuck in a place of inaction. That's tough. So water overcomes that. So when you've got the mud caked, and the earth has dried up and the mud is caked and, nothing's flowing, you put a little water in there and that mud loosens up and then the water can flow. So those are the 5 elements internally. You focus on first bringing positive energy to the liver, looking for any resentment, or embracing friendliness. So let's go in the other direction. What are the positives? So you talk to the liver and you embrace being friendly. You talk to the heart and embrace being patient and loving. You then, wood, fire, earth. Then you focus on the spleen and the stomach, and you seek to comprehend and to allow yourself to accept. Acceptance is another way to look at it. Hang on, let's see. This looks like a sales call. Hello? Yep, sales call. So acceptance. Acceptance, when you don't understand what's going on, you simply have to accept things as they are. So you go from the liver, friendliness, to patience and love, to acceptance. That will help you comprehend it, and then you move to trust in the kidneys. So anyway, I hope that's helpful. So that's, again, that's just something you can do on a daily basis. You can also just be listening to yourself and see where you're at emotionally. If you're resentful, you know that you need to, forgive and allow, and let go of expectations. If you're feeling impatient, then you need to embrace unconditional love and patience. If you're feeling overwhelmed, bewildered, and confused, then you can start with just by accepting things exactly as they are. You don't have to change anything. And then you can ask yourself if you're feeling fearful or if you're in trust. It's okay to have a feeling. You can still be fearful and choose to trust. And then you choose to trust the universe. And then that should bring you to a place of friendliness. So you see how this all works. So I've shown you 2 separate ways. One is to deal with people externally using the 5 elements, and the other one is how to keep yourself balanced. By the way, that daily meditation, doing that, talking to the organs in that order, even if you don't go into it in depth, that will help create life, and it will help purify the body. This is one of the things that the Taoists would do on a daily basis in order to become a perfected immortal. They wanted to achieve, phase out of this physical body and become a deity. And so it's not just about, working on the feelings. If you need a carrot to put in front of you, if you want to be an immortal, perfected immortal God, then work through your emotions like this, in this way. So anyway, there's some of my thoughts about the 5 elements. and going a little deeper on how to use them in a practical day-to-day way. So there you are, my friends. That's it for now. Talk to you guys again very soon.